If it ain't, we got problems.
I'm still dizzy
Oh,
from my trip forward from the '90s. So,
oh yeah, dude. I wish I had that where I could show people. I
yeah.
mean, you look like an episode of Mario Brothers for a minute there.
Well, maybe I'm just in Minecraft mode.
Yeah, that's about it. What up, everybody? Jack. I see Jack's made it. Let's see who all here. Sharon's here. Norbert. EB. Mark. Brian's here today. Uh, oh, appreciate it, Jack. Yeah, Brandy requested that, and I've got the video putting it together. I was working on finishing it tonight or today, and I was going to try to get it out, but Klein took on a job that he was not equipped to do. And so for the past 2 or 3 hours, I have been bailing him out because he had a deadline, and it was a disaster. It was a disaster. But anyway, we got it fixed. We managed to get his job done and made the deadline for him. So my
Well, that's
videos like half edited now. So
well, half edited is better than mine. I've got two that are half shot. Well, one that's mostly shot, one's half shot. So
yeah. Well, I'm trying
it's
to get
been a
some of
week.
this. I'm trying to get some of this stuff done and get it out of here because I'm sick of equipment stuff. I want to do some creative stuff. But anyway, we'll get that. I'll get that done soon, hopefully.
You know,
What's up, Mark? Super Duty. You know who I haven't seen with his excessively long name? Barbecue Bullets and Big Rigs. Haven't seen him yet. I'm gonna change. I'm gonna give him a nickname. Uh, yeah, well, I don't know about mentoring. He did do. Now I will give him this. Well, we had to go up to the mill. He was wanting they wanting plaques, right? You know, like some nice laser engraved, but they wanted them kind of bare bones. You know, didn't want a bunch of metal. They wanted wood. They wanted it engraved, nice and black. You know, router work around the edges. You know, just like a kind of a thank you gifts. And so he shows up over here with a piece of 3/4 pine, 1 by 10, that looked, you could have ate soup off of it. Like I tried to plane it, and I was like, Klein, first of all, it's pine. So wound up going up to the mill, digging through the scrap pile, and I found a sheet or a slab of magnolia that I cut 1.25 inches. And so we brought it down here, cut it up, squared it, milled it out, planed it, and wound up making 3 of those things. And I'd love to show y'all pictures, but I forgot to take any, and I don't know if I can show you pictures of them just yet. But they turned out great because magnolia, it burns really, really black, and it's a really good wood for engraving. And I think Klein may or may not have stole the rest of that slab when he left.
mm,
He had discussed it until I told him how much it cost. But
yeah.
oh well, welcome, American Eagle. Well, if you hadn't, I don't know if you found us through Steve or found us through me, but whichever way, we believe in cross pollinating here. So if you're coming from one, go to the other, hit that subscribe button. We both do similar content. Uh, Steve's loading up me a load of lumber, going to bring it down here for me. He sent me a picture of that.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, we can talk about that, but
Man, see, I just can't believe y'all got black walnut everywhere up there, and down here it's like if you see a black walnut, there's 10 people already stopped and asked people about cutting it.
no, we get people up here that they think they've got gold in their yard, and they'll offer to have people come bid on the tree, and they're like, no, you're gonna pay me to take it down, and I might discount it if it's good, because yeah, you never know with a standing tree, and especially if it's in residential, it's hard to take down, and there's probably metal all over it. So
Oh
but
yeah,
yeah, there's a lot of black walnut up here.
yeah. I've had people ask me how much I was going to pay them for the pine trees, and I'm like, you do realize I live in a pine forest, right? I got like 8 acres of just pine trees. I'm not going
Yeah,
to pay you anything for it. What up,
yeah.
Fluffy? Come here. Look who just added to join us. Aha! Say hey. Say what's up.
Seems thrilled.
Yeah, she's been hiding lately. I don't know what her deal is. Go play. She needs shedding. All right. Good evening, MN. That's one of your neighbors there, Steve.
Well, yeah, I mean they're up north there, but yeah, closer than you are.
If I say he's closer to being your neighbor than he is mine.
Yeah.
But yeah, I appreciate that, Norbert. Yeah, I've got the video, and hopefully, if nothing else, nobody else calls in any emergency visits, hopefully I'll be able to get that done. I don't know, tomorrow, hopefully. So the video is pretty cool. I could give you a sneak peek if I still got it. No, I had it open for editing. But yeah. Well, Sharon, the back. Well, that's a slippery slope. I'm not sure if it's the back or if it's not. And believe it or not, one of you guys is the one that mentioned it. And I can't remember what it's called for the sake of me.
Is it your piriformis muscle?
That's it. Yeah, I think that's what it is. I'm gonna be honest with you. They were wanting to cut on me, and I didn't want them to cut on me, so I've been trying to do everything. And I think I've come to the conclusion that it's actually I may be one of those rare people whose sciatic nerves runs through that muscle, because I noticed the other day I was riding down the road and I felt like I was sitting on a butterfly or something. Like it was constant twitching. It would not quit
Mm-hmm.
because I had laid off the muscle relaxers because they told me I had bulging discs. I'm like, well, what do I need with muscle relaxers if I got a bulged disc? And so that twitching started, and immediately that leg went to just screaming at me. So I had to pull over and take some ibuprofen. And so then I started, researching that. And it's a long story how that actually got on my mind after that. And so I started doing some stretches and some things that's supposed to target that condition. And believe it or not, I would say I've at least a 60% reduction in the pain and the times that I feel pain and everything. So fingers
Yeah.
crossed.
Interestingly enough, a couple years ago, well, actually maybe a little bit longer than that, I was having similar issues, and between a chiropractor and physical therapist, they kind of targeted the same thing. And so they were like, all right, here's how you stretch it out, and then here's some exercises to strengthen both your core, your stomach muscles, and that muscle. And so you're right, if you can target it and stretch it out,
Yeah.
it provides a lot of relief, and much better than having them going in and cut on you. So
Well, I didn't want that because I'm scared to death of it. I'm be honest with you. I'm afraid they're going to get in there and be like, "Oops," and
Well,
I'll wake up and I'll be like, "Hey, sorry, I had a long day and I cut something I shouldn't have." And yeah, about those legs, that's just I'm just call me a big pansy, but I don't want them cutting on me if I don't have to. But so far it's reducing, so I've kind of told them, "Hey, let's hold off on any kind of visits to the doctor's office. Let me see if I can work through this." And so far, so good. I'm not going to call it just yet. And I don't doubt that I have bulging discs. I mean, I tote, 2 inch, 2.5. Oh, you just got through moving a load of lumber. Imagine working at that sawmill for a whole weekend, throwing
yeah.
that stuff around. So I don't doubt it that, I have bulging discs, but I don't know that that's what's causing my problems. So we'll see. Yeah, Brian, you say that. My brother-in-law found a piece of gauze the other day, 4 weeks after his surgery, that managed to push itself to the surface.
Hmm.
Yeah. So and people ask me, and we went to this chief conference the other day, and the guy that was in there is like this big time risk assessment guy from California. And he was telling us that you have like a 60% better chance of being killed by your doctor than you do the police officer that pulls you over. And I was like, wow, okay, that's good to know, Or no, 600. It was 600% better chance. And I'm like, oh Lord. So, yeah. But fingers crossed. Y'all keep me in your prayers, and maybe it'll work itself out. I really hope so. I do not want surgery. It's one thing if the guy at the oil change place, forgets to put the plug back in, but it's another thing if the doctor messes up.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Enough of that. Anyway.
yeah. So I know you've been busy with getting ready for fall shows. You've been working on inventory stuff, getting caught up on your stove covers. Where's the end in sight? What's when do you get to be creative?
Well, look, guys. Oh, where'd she go? That's what I deal with on a regular basis, right there. Trying to work, and that's what I get. But she just wants part of the camera. Hang on. Hopefully, I've still got a bunch of stove covers I got to build. I think I'm down to one, two, three, four. I'm down to 10 stove covers, and I've got 6 cutting boards on order over there. So, but most of those are recent orders. But I did 4 this weekend. I've got to put the handles and some little, the skid plates or skid, whatever, the little fuzzy things that goes under the bottom. I got to put those on, and I'll have those 4 turned in. So, and then I've got a couple of machines. One of them is for me. One of them is my V35 that is still sitting in the box over there because I haven't had a chance to put it together. I've got it, and I've got the extensions. And I think I'm going to do a video of it because there's been some people having some issues with, taking a stock machine and extending it. So I'm gonna probably do a video with that one. I think I did one with the P20, but I got that coming up. And I'll be glad to get that V35 in here. And I'm going to move this guy into like a backup role. And then I've got another machine that you also have. I saw some of your boasting about how thick it'll cut the other day. That I've got to get out of the box and put together. A couple of cameras that I'm going to test out, and maybe, depending on how they work, I may start using it in some of my enclosures. And then I've quit taking anything right now, unless it's really, really good. Now, guys, y'all can't hate on me if somebody wants to send me like a really cool toy and not charge me for it. So don't be hating. So sometimes it's hard to say no if it's something that I really like. Oh, and I do. Some of you guys will be happy to know. My Ender 3 V2 Neo should be here tomorrow, I think it is. So I will be able to 3D print. Finally, I will be able to 3D print. But it's gonna have to stay in the house because it's, kind of landlocked out here. Somebody mentioned it, but I don't have any room out here right now. Kind of landlocked for the moment.
Yeah, well,
So
they don't take up a whole lot of space. They don't make a lot of noise, and if you're just playing around with PLA, they don't even really smell that bad. So it shouldn't be a problem right away.
Well, I bought when I bought the machine, I went ahead and got the Creality enclosure that's for that machine. It's kind of like the one we had, but not quite as big.
Yeah.
I got the Creality enclosure, and I got the 2 rolls of PLA. I got black and white, and I'm sure it probably comes with a little bit of material, but I went ahead and ordered me black and white, and that's what I'm going to start out with because everything I've read said that in the beginning stages that's the best medium to learn with, and then once I get good at that, I might try other materials, but for now PLA will do.
Yeah, it's a good forgiving starting material, so definitely a good call on that. So, but yeah, well, as you mentioned, I've been working on a couple machines. I pulled the ASMR P2 out of the box, and as far as assembly goes, there's not much to it. Slap the module onto the frame and plug in a couple wires. They've got it all assembled, which is really nice for someone that kind of might be intimidated by any of the assembly. And so we're working on that, but they're calling it a heat bubble, and I've been getting alerts on my phone for a heat warning and advisory for tomorrow through Thursday. So I'm not going to be spending a lot of time out here this week. So today I spent some more time with the SaintSmart, the Prover XL 6050 CNC machine, trying to get some kind of intro video together for that, getting it set up and running a few things on there kind of mix that in because yeah, I'm with you. I want to get back into being creative with some things, show some more projects to hopefully be inspiring people to do. I'm gonna need to build up some stuff because I've got that Woodworkers Expo here in the Twin Cities in Minnesota coming up rapidly, and so I'm gonna need to make sure I've got my gear set up that I'm going to bring up there, anything that I can test, and probably I'll bring up some example projects that maybe I can't do on site, but to show people as well. So I'm going to
Yeah.
hopefully not leave that up till the ninth hour to crash, do my cramming and my studying for the test, like we all did in college and whatnot. But yeah, it's and that's just going to roll into. I mean, everybody already doing their fall stuff and Christmas stuff, building inventory, planning their shows and such because fall's here for the craft season and you hit pretty much mid to late October and the Christmas seasons for those shows are already starting as well. So definitely need to get some stuff out for that. So yeah, I did a little shopping this weekend. Went to my friend Matt Collins over in Northfield, Minnesota area. He had a variety of stuff, and so I picked up some Western red cedar, some hard maple, some butternut, a slab of elm, and a smaller walnut slab because you can't go there without grabbing at least one piece of walnut. And brought that back for a few planned projects, some stuff that my wife and I have been talking about, and also just some material for throwing at the machines and such. So. I got plenty of stuff I want to do, just not enough time. Our college I work at classes start tomorrow. Faculty were here last week, and so it's August is always a busy month for me, and I just kind of like hold on and get my way through it. So
Yeah, well, that's kind of the way it is here with me right now. Like I said, I got a little backed up. Had to take a trip, and so hopefully it won't be long. I can get some of this stuff caught up. But yeah, uh, I don't know what PLA stands for either. There, Jeff. It's some kind of plant-based plastic. I'll tell you that. That's all I know about it. Steve can probably tell you what it is. What's the PLA stand for?
what does PL now
He said he
you're
looked it up, but it's saying it's People's Liberation Army, which is not correct.
uh, poly, polylactic acid.
Mark beat you to it. It's based on plants, from what I read. So they said it's like non-toxic, and the fumes don't bother you. It
Right.
isn't the most rugged material for printing stuff, but just to do like little figurines and just to get the hang of designing and being able to print it, I think it'll be a good material. Kind of like I use my 1/8 inch material sometimes to test burns because it's cheaper. And then once I get that to where I'm comfortable with it, then I can move into the other materials. I think ABS, isn't that about as high as you can go with an ender without some major changes? I think
Uh,
that's what I've read.
yeah. Depends on the mods you put on there, but yeah, and that you definitely want the enclosure. You want to control the temperature because that is highly susceptible to temperature swings and such. So,
Yeah.
and you don't like those fumes are not. It's just the same thing. You don't want to burn it through your laser. You don't want to really be inhaling those fumes. So,
Yeah.
um,
Well, I thought about it, and I have measured. And just so you know, Steve, the ender will fit in enclosure Zilla. I may have to turn it sideways, get it in there, and then stand it back up. But I can get it in there. But yeah, it's like I said, I want it basically to get the basics of it down and understand it, and then maybe later I move into something bigger. But I think it would be pretty cool because some of the ideas and things that I have to make stuff, I can do it on a CNC. I can make a lot of things three dimensional with lasers, but 3D printing, and they've got this new 3D scanner, and I've got to try it. I've got to try it. I haven't got the scanner yet. That's on my to do list. But no, it's not going to be one of those where they send it out to me. I have been waiting for somebody to send me a 3D printer, and they have it. So I just went and bought my own. So, but yeah. Oh, there's a question. Finally, a question. We can quit rambling. That's how it works, guys. All right, Steve, take it.
I'd have to go back and look at some of my test grids. Um, yeah, it's 10 to 20 was not necessarily double the speed and the cutting there. Um, 20 to 33, yeah, I would say maybe in some material you got another 50% jump, but I would say, I would say it's probably more like 35%, give or take. It just there seems to be slightly diminishing returns because the spot size is getting bigger, and so that power is spread out over more material, so it doesn't necessarily have the same direct cutting power as it would if it was a tighter beam. Now, that being said, some of the latest lasers that we've seen uh, have kind of still brought that focus point back down, and so like the algo laser, I felt had still a pretty tight beam, but they were throwing that 20 watts at it, and it was cutting better than a lot of the other 20 watts I have seen. So, it's hard to just say 20-watt diode is the same across the board. It really there's a number of variables to that. But there is a power increase, but I would say that the curve kind of starts flattening out as you start getting up there in the higher power modules.
Yeah, because you gotta figure if you've got 10 watts, and I'm gonna use some crazy numbers just to make it make sense. If you've got 10 watts and you've got a quarter-inch area that's hitting, and then you've got 20 watts, but it's hitting a half-inch area, then technically, as far as the surface contact goes, you're not. But the way that they're doing them is they've been keeping the spot size the same for the most part. But now some of these companies, I agree with you. Algo, I think they push their spot size back down a little bit compared to some of the other 30 watt, 20 watt machines. But there is a definite noticeable difference when you have a 30 watt with a really fine spot and a 30 watt with a not as fine spot. You can see the difference in the cut, and you've pointed this out before too. Some companies use a rectangular spot. Some companies use a square spot. Where it'll be like point zero 0.08 by point 0.10 or whatever. So the square spots in my opinion, tend to do a little bit better job of cutting because they cut like you've shown before. The x and the y axis, the kerf is the same, and therefore all that power is still hitting that small of an area, and it seems to do a little bit better job. Let's see. Not exactly. I will tell you. Are you talking about just for like any of your lasers, Rob? Because I've had a lot of people asking me for a version that would work with machines that aren't necessarily in my wheelhouse or in my design library. I have it up here, and I'm going to put it together, but it'll probably be another week or two. But I've come up with a way that as long as you use a honeycomb or a spoil board or something, I've come up with a way that I can fix a interlocking jig kit that will work with any machine, including enclosed CO2 machines that have a fixed honeycomb bed. I've got it worked out in my head. That's the reason I needed a printer, a 3D printer too. Uh, I've got it figured out in my head. I've got it worked out to where it will work basically the same as my jig kit that I sell for the machines, which the legs sit down in the into the jig kit. But I've got a design. I've got it figured out, and I'm just toying around with it. Going to do some fine tuning because there's some people out there that have asked me, "Oh, hey, I've got this machine. Could I use your kit?" And I can't make it unless I have hands on the machine. But I have figured out a way to do it to where pretty much instead of trying to fit it to a machine, it's going to work a little bit differently. So, but there's going to be a little trial and error. But y'all will know when I get it built. But it'll probably be a week or two because I'm waiting on my 3D printer to get here and get proficient with it, and also I'm backed up right now. Larry, I missed the first part of your question or something. Uh, and Larry, if you're asking about the Comgrow large enclosure or honeycomb, I don't know. If you're asking about the honeycomb, it's still here. It's right there. That's the Comgrow, their biggest one that they make. Uh, I still run it because so far I haven't found one that's bigger.
There's the second part of the question.
Oh, wait a minute. Hang on. No, I don't think the one we had didn't have a fan or anything built in it.
It has
one of
it's
them
got a
did.
4-inch port that you can put on either side. And then I don't know. I mean, I don't know if he's asking if you hooked up their smoke extractor, their little thing
Oh,
to it, but
no,
that's way too small for that big enclosure.
yeah, I didn't. I did not try that thing. I don't even. You might could get an adapter, but it's only got like that's it behind me back there. It's only got like a 2-inch hose on it.
Hmm.
Brian. Yeah, I hadn't got it to where I can see my messages right now, Brian. Sorry. But yeah, Rob, that is the goal is to have it to where other people can use it. It's going to require a little more end user input possibly, but I think it's doable. I'm just working on getting the bugs worked out of it.
So before you bounce off this one, we should answer it. Um, as far as 20-watt diodes, a sweet spot between engraving and cutting. Uh, I guess in my experience, uh, if it's a decent laser and you're just working on things like wood and MDF, uh, I don't know that you're going to see a huge difference between 10, 20, and 30 watt. As far as price, I think 20 watt is the sweet spot as far as getting best bang for your buck and the features. Um, but unless you go all the way down to the smaller 5-watt diodes with that zero 0.6, zero 0.5, zero 0.6 beam, or you get into the Galvo style lasers like the Com Marker or the X Tool F1, um, I personally, in the stuff I've done, I haven't seen a big enough difference to worry about it. Now, can you tell the difference? Sure, you can get some high quality photos and see a slight difference. Does if you're doing it for customers, are they really going to notice the difference too much? I don't think so, unless you are really high end and you're taking a lot of time and you have that customer base. I don't think your average customer is going to notice it. Um, So, but that being said, I'm not seeing a huge increase in spot size from 20 to 30, even 40. I think there's a bigger jump from 5 to 10 and maybe a slight one from 10 to 20, depending. But like we mentioned with the algo laser and a few others, I think they're getting that collimating lens kind of tuned where it's bringing it back down and keeping it around that zero 0.1 millimeter uh, size. And that's pretty good resolution.
Yeah, yeah, I would agree with you on that. If your medium is going to be primarily porous materials like wood, MDF, things like that, you're not likely to notice between a 10 and a 30 watt. You're not likely to notice it as long as you adjust your LPI to suit, the size of your graphic or whatever. But I mean, of course, you're never going to get the spot size of like the com marker. I mean, you're not going to get it down that low. But if you're primarily focused on wood materials, I agree. 20 watts kind of the workhorse, I guess you could say, because it's economically, like you said, it's the cheaper version. 20 is more than capable of cutting most hobby grade woods, whether it's 1/8 inch, 1/4 inch. I mean, you can if you got time on your hands, you can cut 1/2 inch successfully. Now it's not going to be pretty, but it'll do it. But yeah, 20 is kind of if somebody came to me and said, "Hey, I'm going to get into laser engraving. Where do I need to start?" I would point them into the 20 class right now because the machines are affordable enough that you can get a machine that is great for just hobby level stuff, And the prices of some of these machines between Longer and Two Trees and Comgrow and some of these companies, I mean, the price is really affordable as compared to what me and you paid for an X Tool D1 back in the day. I mean, they're
Right.
cheaper. You know, I paid my X Tool D1. I paid $800 for it, and it was a 10 watt with no bells and whistles, no limit switches, no nothing. Now for $800, you can get a beast of a machine that has limit switches, automatic air assist. I mean, so yeah, I think the 20 would be the sweet spot right now for somebody getting into it. If you're not trying to do like production level stuff, if you are trying to do production level stuff, then maybe you need to get two or three 20s. You know, that's what I do. I'm running a 30 and a 20 right now, which I will say I have been leaning heavy on this 30 for these ornaments and stuff I've been cutting out because it is a little faster. I mean, I'm actually getting about 2 millimeters a second faster out of the longer 30 watt than I am the Acer P20. I run 6 millimeters a second on the Acer and 8 millimeters a second on the longer, and I'm getting clean drops consistently on this 4.5 millimeter plywood. So I am enjoying the added power because it's a lot faster when I'm prototyping stuff. Because sometimes you have to burn it and it just doesn't look right, and then you do it again and again and again. So, but yeah, 20's a good number right now. Uh, well, Chris, not exactly, but I don't want to reveal my idea right now. Somebody go snag it from me. But I've got something that's going to work for multiple machines when it gets dirty.
It's good. Yeah, it's hard to put a, you know, there's not necessarily odometers on these things, because with a car they tell you so many miles or so many months, but even that it's going to depend on your use and such. So that's really what it comes down to. But it's also going to depend on what you're burning and your air evacuation system. I've been thinking about this a lot because I'm going to be building a new enclosure to fit some of these larger lasers and the extended rails that I have for at least the IKEA. I want to have a bigger enclosure, and I really want this design now to pull more downward so that that smoke doesn't, kind of curl back up and get into that fan. I think the more you can keep that smoke away from going back up through that module, uh, the longer you can run it without having as much buildup in the inside. Some of the rules of thumb I've heard people throw around in some manufacturers has been like after 8 hours of use, you should give it a good cleaning inside and out. But when it's coming to cover lenses, I've had to clean it after one job sometime because down there it's getting these. One of my biggest complaints about these diode lasers is how close that laser optic needs to be to the material. That focal length is just so short, and that's one of the bigger advantages of a CO2 is you can actually adjust the focal length of the laser with different lenses. But it being so close, you're going to get more debris on that bottom area. So that's where if I can get more of a downdraft going, I think it's going to help prevent the buildup both on the bottom of the module, but also the smoke going up and then getting sucked back through as that cooling system works. That would help prolong it. But yeah, as far as really taking it apart, that's where your visual inspections are going to give you some idea. Get a flashlight in there, take a look. Are you seeing some buildup on the electronics, on the fan blades and such? It's definitely time to clean it out.
Yeah. Oh, I agree with you. It's time to me is not as important to when you clean it as what have you been cutting. Like I said, there's some woods like pine. You will have pine tar on the end of your air assist nozzle. I do about four of my stove covers, the birds, which is about a 12 to 14 each circular design. After about four of them, I have to take the nozzle cone off and clean it because it will literally have black, like,
Yeah.
it's basically vaporized sap stuck to the end of the nozzle. But then I can turn around and I can cut some of my 4.5 and I can cut that stuff all day and not have any problems. I also use strictly downdraft type designs so that it pulls the air down it pulls the clean air in across the module to try to keep it from being dirty all the time. That helps prolong it. But if you're like me, and sometimes you get busy and I forget to turn my extraction on until I see smoke rolling out of the enclosure, then you're gonna have to clean it a little more often. So, yeah, the material is gonna affect how often. Just kind of just look at it every now and then. If the tip of that nozzle, every time I clean mine, I clean the tip of my nozzle. And I use that as my gauge. When the tip of that nozzle starts looking nasty, then it's time to clean it. So I have to take it apart, clean it. But now I don't take the complete module apart, but I'd probably say every couple of months because mine doesn't get that dirty. But when I start seeing a bunch of buildup on the fan, I go ahead and break it down all the way, clean it, make sure all my heating, cooling fins and everything are clear, and put it back together. But just make sure you're comfortable with that if you start pulling those modules apart, and don't pull them all the way apart. That could get interesting.
Yeah, you got to be careful with those wires. Those are the things that tend to break quite a bit, and so the less you need to plug and unplug those, the better.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think in this case, it's working on the prevention and redesigning that airflow. I mean, I try to be helpful on various forums as much as I can, but there's so often that people forget about the inlet of the air. And if you don't have that air moving through there, that smoke's going to sit in there and your fan's just going to be running it through all your electronics and everything all day long. That's going to cause a big problem.
At that point, your module's acting as the air filter.
Yeah. Yep.
It's just sitting there recycling that dirty air and collecting the dust out of it. Perman, I would check the belt tension and stuff with your machine if any of that didn't fit together. I, I haven't had anybody yet contact me and say the pieces didn't fit together where it wasn't a machine issue, or either if you're importing the file, do not import. Use the open function. For some reason, especially XCS, you can only use the DXF format. And I will tell you, Lightburn has this nasty habit. If you import something, it may or may not be the size that it was originally designed to be. If you open it, it will be exactly the size it's supposed to be. So just make sure that when you're bringing my files into Lightburn, open them. Do not import. Because I have had some people have issues with importing, causing some distortion in the sizes and the measurements of it.
Have you burned a lot of red cedar in your lasers?
Yes. That's one of my favorite go-tos.
So,
No, I mean cedar burns great. Now it does have a little bit of sap, but it's not as bad as pine. No, it's nowhere near as bad as pine. It burns really black, so if you're doing engraving, once you run the LPI up a little bit, you don't have to worry about backfilling or anything like that. I mean, it burns really black. That and I guess that's the other one that burns really good would be the magnolia that we did tonight. Magnolia burns really, really black. You don't have to treat it. You ain't got to borax it or any of that jive. I got to turn my phone on vibrate here. You just, it keeps going off. It doesn't usually do this. You just have to burn it, sand it a little bit if you run air assist or if you just don't like the way it looks, and go from there. So, but yeah, I don't have any problems with cedar. I've got a bunch of it over there. It burns nice. Matter of fact, I've got 3 stacks of it up at the mill that I cut 1/4 inch thick. Just 4 lasers. Was up there today and Klein was eyeballing it as we were moving it off the top of the piece of wood we had to get for him. He was like, "What's all this for?" And I was, "The shack. That's what it's for." There's your. That's one you'll like. You get all sciencey on that one. Oh wait a minute.
I think we both clicked something.
You clicked a different one.
Yeah. For the most part, I use compressed air to try to clean it out. If there's a lot of buildup on the fan blades itself, I might take a Q-tip dipped in some, alcohol and clean them off. But generally, taking that out, holding the fan still, and dusting off does most. And then the same thing with electronics. As far as the nozzle and the lens, that again, I'll use like isopropyl alcohol, or even acetone if you really have something stuck on there and you're trying to save the cover lens. That'll get deeper, and then kind of the same thing with the cone. I'll soak it in that, but nothing too crazy. Again, I try not to get too much into the module other than some compressed air.
Yeah, I wouldn't go spraying any kind of liquid stuff down in there, and the reason I say that is because there are some little tiny places in there that you do not want to rinse that debris into. So I would avoid that, even if it is alcohol, because even though alcohol is going to evaporate over a period of time, you could rinse particles into a place that they really don't need to be. I'm the same way with Steve. I use Q-tips, compressed air, Q-tips, and alcohol. I have had the opportunity to have to use something like on the nozzle. I've got some of that sticker remover, that Oops, which is really just a powerful solvent. I'll use it on the nozzle itself, but I don't use it on the laser. Because sometimes that pine tar is kind of tough to get off, and that Oops will take it right off of there.
Well, I actually use on my saw blades. I use Simple Green. I let it soak in there a little bit, then a nylon brush. Usually not my toothbrush, someone else's, but that cleans it up pretty quick too. So
Yeah, Super Duty. I've heard of some cedar plywood. I don't. Like I said, I don't buy cedar. I've got a pile of cedar up there at the sawmill, about the size of a garbage truck, that's just piled up that I haven't milled yet. So I mill my cedar that I use. The only thing I have to buy is like the panels for my stove covers and stuff that I have to turn out so many. Everything else I try to use stuff off my mill, but I haven't been able to mill lately. So there's that. Well, thank you there, Brian. Yeah, I just did 3 plaques earlier, and of course used my squaring jig, and Klein was over here, and we had somebody that had never been around lasers. He was explaining it to him. He was explaining to him how helpful that little squaring jig is when you're doing plaques like that are the same size. Because I built basically a jig file for them, and I just had to change the names and the text, and then I just burned one, throw another one in there, burn it, and another one. So it definitely it was born out of necessity because I am terrible at squaring things up. Y'all know I'm not good with math, and that kind of dictates over to trying to find the center of things. So it was just a way for me to work around my handicap with numbers. Oh my goodness! Now I got to silence my watch. Oh, it's Todd Miso. He actually, which I'm glad he's having fun. He got, how I do my stove covers for Clayton Homes, right? Well,
hmm
he got the one in Calera, and I was gonna send him the design for my Clack Shack rack, but he's apparently made his own to hold the stove covers at the store. But I hate to tell him that's not gonna be big enough. I was gonna send him my design, but I gotta get a Fusion 360 to do that. I don't want to open it while I'm streaming. I'm afraid to mess it up. But anyway, what's up, Brent? Brent Shoemake? I know some shoemakers.
So yeah, Josh, I really try to avoid adding anything to there. You can get electronics cleaner, which is like a super fast evaporating alcohol. But the problem is that you could just be rinsing that off onto something else. And so that's where I try not to use liquids on them because, when you're blasting it out, it generally is going to keep it moving and you can continue cleaning it out with air. Whereas if the liquid, dissolves it, it runs and then it can re-solidify somewhere else if it doesn't actually evacuate. So that's where I try to. My goal is to try to keep the dirty air from going into that module by getting that airflow going down lower and pulling it away from below instead of letting it get up above and recirculate in there. If it's already there, that's the tough thing to do.
Yes. Mike, I've been running my P20, and I run when I say running my P20, I don't mean casually. I mean I've run this thing continually, like one burn after other for 8 hours on some of May's jobs where I had to make like 300 ink bandits. And if you keep it clean, yes, the air vents are plenty. There's people that tell you, oh, you need to do this, you need to do that. But here's what you need to look at. When you look down through that module, it all comes down to one of Steve's things that he says. Your output and your input need to be equal. Like, so the amount of air coming into the module, if you have more area coming in than you have going out, the fan's only going to move as much air as it can push through the exit. So if you look down through that module, there's really not a whole lot of surface area that isn't obstructed by, heat sink or the laser module itself or any of the other electronics. So me personally, I haven't had any problems with mine getting hot, and I have run the dog stew out of it. So I don't see a problem. What do you think, Steve? The P20 got enough vents in the top?
I, yeah, I mean, I pretty much agree with you as far as it gets pretty restricted in there anyway. So I haven't run mine as hard as you have, but I haven't. I guess I wouldn't be overly concerned about that one. Um, yeah, no, I I don't know. It is a design concern with these diode lasers in the fact that they're open frame, and if you were in fact using them outdoors in an area where the air is just moving away, it would be perfect. Outside of that, it really comes down to your enclosure and your airflow design, and keeping that air moving and keeping it away from there. Otherwise, you could have bigger holes going through there, but it's still going to be pulling dirty air, and it's still going to have an effect on it. But yeah, I wouldn't say I've run into any issues with any of these overheating, and I'm trying to think of the scenario where it might, because usually with engraving, it's variable power, so you'd have to be doing a lot of cutting, like solid cutting at high power for a long time.
Yeah, well, that's like with the ink bandits. Those things, like I said, it takes me 45 minutes to cut out three typically, and I cut three out of a sheet of 16 by 16. And as fast as they finish up, I load another one, and I've never had any overheating problems. So I really don't see. I mean, you'd have to really be on top of your game to torture test a machine more than I do here in the shop. So I don't see where it's an issue. And I have taken my P20 apart enough to know that when you look down through that module, there's just little tiny areas around the edge where you could actually blow air through there. So no matter what's on the top, I still think there's more air going in than there is coming out the bottom. So that's just, I haven't got the calculations. I mean, I haven't measured it, but from looking at it, it appears to be more than adequate ventilation in the top. So, because no matter how much ventilation you add, you still can't pull air through the top of that fan motor because it sits right in the middle. And it's maybe what, like an inch the motor is? So,
I'd have to look at. Hey Dave, thanks for stopping by. I appreciate it. And
hello there.
Dave does a lot of CNC content, and if you're interested, he's
I know
building
I've watched some of his videos. He actually, I think he's the one that has the video on that guy on the 4040.
I believe he does, yeah.
The 4040, yeah.
He's doing a cool build on I think it's a square drop camper, not a teardrop, but a square back. Cool little camper build, and that's something that I keep thinking about, but it would just consume my shop and my time too much. So
it's too hot for you to do that right now, Steve. I'm afraid you would.
Well,
I'm afraid you'd have a heat stroke.
Not that bad.
But yeah, I think Dave was one of the few people that I actually found that had a video using the fourth axis. So I think it was him. I can't remember, man. I went all over the internet. I found a few videos that kind of kept me piece together the process. But yeah, well, go check him out, guys. If you're in the CNC, I mean, it's I have my pinky toe in the CNC world. That's about as far as I've made it. But yes, that's the Sane Smart right there, and then there's another one. Wait a minute, right there, but I can't talk about that one. So there's one over there, but we can't talk about it yet. So, but yeah.
Um, yeah. So Jack, I was just going to throw in there as far as other wood that burns really dark. I like the contrast and the look I get from cedar as well. It engraves really nice and gets nice and dark contrast. So that's one of my favorite ones. Um, and cherry wood is I don't know. It's not as I wouldn't say it's as plentiful up here as walnut, but I do see a lot of it, and that looks great. So those are kind of, if I'm just doing a nice engraving, I'll try to find a couple of those around here.
Well, my three go-tos, or my two main go-tos in our area for dark engraving that is really common. Poplar is a really light wood. Now you will get some greens, like you see where this knot turns green. It'll have a lot of green in the heart. You may have purple, you may have pink, but if you can find some clean, like this white. Now this is some that I got out of a yard, been laying there for a while, so it's got bug holes in it and stuff, but it makes them for some really cool signs and so forth. Poplar burns really good. Cedar, I've got tons of this stuff. And little known wood for the laser arena is magnolia. Now, I will tell you this: southern magnolia is classified as a hardwood. It's really really soft. It cuts like poplar on the sawmill, but once you dry this stuff, man, it is rough. Like you better make sure that the blades on your planer are sharp before you start trying to plane this stuff down, because the roller will just leave skid marks on there and it won't do anything. But it's pretty neat though. Matter of fact, let me put this piece in there for a minute. Hang on, let me mute my mic where I can go run this through the planer one good time. I'll be right back.
Right. I know someone mentioned maple, and yeah, so this is a maple sign, and it has a couple defects in there, but you get some pretty decent contrast. It's not necessarily as dark of an engrave as some, but you'll get a pretty good contrast out of it because it then tends to be a bit lighter than others. So, kind of a balance of what's available in your area, and what you find for your liking. Black walnut does have a darker engrave to it, but it's a dark wood as already, and so sometimes that contrast goes away. So while it does engrave nice, I kind of feel like sometimes it's a little bit lost there because it is already so dark of a material.
Yeah.
All right.
I ran this through the planer one pass. Got it slick. That is magnolia. That's southern magnolia right there. It's pretty good wood. So let me set this over here in this machine for a minute. Carry on. I'm having to adjust focus.
Yeah, that is a good question, Jack has. Where do you get magnolia wood?
Uh, well, this one was a guy. There was a storm came through, and it broke the top out of it, and he cut it out of his yard. And I drove by his house, and it was laying out by the road. And so I went home, got my trailer, went back and got it. And then he told me he had two more he was going to cut, so I wound up going back and getting them. So, and then I mill it on my sawmill. It's actually it's expensive if you have to buy it, but that is the benefit of having your own sawmill and the ability to go pick up logs. That's where I get most of all of this wood like this that you see here, this poplar. Uh, this was a guy was clearing a spot to build a house. I got some of this. Cedar. Every time a storm comes through around here, somebody loses a cedar tree, and I pick those up. So it's with me, I find it just laying in people's yards. because a lot of the tree companies, I'm friends with a lot of tree guys. Because in a previous life, I climbed trees for a living, and so I know all the tree guys in my area. And so if they go to a house, especially during storms, where it's an elderly person on a fixed income, and a tree has blew down in their yard, the tree company will tell them, hey, look, I'll cut it up and get it ready for this much money, but if I have to haul it off, it's going to cost you this much. And they'll be like, oh, I can't afford that. And so the guys will be like, well, how about I got a guy that can come get the log, and then I ain't got to charge you for that. And so they're like, oh, yeah, tell him come get it. And so I come get the log, and they don't have to pay to have it hauled off. So it usually saves them, $300 or $400 for me to come pick it up versus having to have it hauled to the dump or whatever. That's where most of mine comes from. I got to get light burned up. But not everybody's going to have that. Now, there are people, there's sawmills all over this country, guys. I know because I'm in a bunch of sawmill groups. So if you find a sawmill near your location for laser engraving, a lot of the stuff that we burn or we call scraps is awesome for making like cabin signs and stuff like that. I have people that come over here and like dig through my scrap pile, stuff that I didn't really want, and they fall in love with pieces of wood. So talk to people and try to find out where the sawmill nearest you is, as far as like a hobby mill like what I have, because they can be a really good resource. Because lasers is one of the very few places that if you have to cut a piece of cedar 1/4 inch thick, we don't get mad about it. So
Yeah, Brad brings up a good point. Woodcraft and/or most rocklers, they're woodworking stores. They tend to keep a supply of both domestics and some exotics on hand, and depending if they work with some local sawyers, they may be able to pull some in as well. And so that's definitely a place to go. You're probably going to pay a premium for it.
yes, you will.
So I know there's another place. I mean, here in Minnesota, and more specifically up in the Twin Cities, there's a few places. One of them is called Discount Lumber. They're in the South Side. They kind of take some of the offcuts and also some of the other wood out of a larger mill operation, and they have more of a retail place for that, as well as other hardwood dealers in the area, Seawicks. And then, of course, if you're looking for mail order, I'd have to look, but Ooch's Hardwood out of Wisconsin is a good source for a lot of various woods. So if you don't have the option to find someone local, those are some of the places you might want to look at. Is if you have a rockler or a woodcraft near you, that's a good option. Otherwise, look up for hardwood dealers or cabinet maker suppliers in your area. They might be able to help you out at obviously a little higher price than dealing directly with a sawyer, but it takes a little digging.
Oh, oh my goodness! All right, there we go. All right, we'll be back with that in a minute. But that's a piece of the magnolia right there.
So Sharon's asking, does two-pass engraving darken the engrave, or doesn't it work that way? What are your thoughts?
You're better off just to pull yourself up about a millimeter out of focus to try to get it darker. The thing to remember about a laser, how many of y'all have went inside your enclosure and noticed that there's this layer of really fine dust everywhere? Reason being is if you have your laser perfectly focused when you're engraving, it basically just destroys the material. It doesn't necessarily burn it. But what happens if your laser's out of focus? It burns, but it won't cut. So if you, I gotta turn some exhaust on. I'm starting to get magnolia fumes over here. But if you raise a millimeter, if you will raise your laser up a millimeter, and if you're wanting to get it dark, play with the LPI, you will find, like I'm running this burn here at 200 LPI. I'm running 110 millimeters a second, 100% power. And you can see how dark it is now. Now I do have the air assist on, but I like running air assist because sometimes it makes it burn deeper and smoother because it blows that dust and stuff out of the hole. But you'll find that you get more bang for your buck raising your focus and playing with the LPI than you do trying to run two passes. That's my experience.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Now, if you want to try to get a little more even engrave, you can play around with the crosshatch feature where it's going to engrave one direction then up and down, and that can sometimes take away some of the lines you'll get, especially along grain lines and such. It's not necessarily perfect for a done deal, but that can help smooth out the engraving a bit. And then if you want them to pop, another thing you can do is you can add a sublayer in there to have it do the engrave, but then set it to do a line around the outside just to kind of give that edge just a little bit of definition. And you can do it. You don't need to add a second. You don't need to copy it and create a second layer. You just do a sublayer on the same one. So do the fill mode and then do the line mode around the outside, and that can add just a little definition, especially when you're doing some fine text and stuff. So.
That putting the fine line around your engrave, if you're planning on paint backfilling it, that little fine line will also help keep some of the bleed through from the wood fibers from bleeding back into the main design. That's, especially if you make it a good solid thick line or deep line, because what happens is when you're painting, if you touch the end of that wood, it'll like wick through it. But if you make a cut across there and cut that fiber, that kind of stops that in its tracks. So it makes it a little cleaner, a little easier to backfill the paint. I think we're about done. Yeah, we're almost done over there. So, yeah, I got cameras everywhere, guys. Go to, but no Magnolia. Ooch? What is Ooch?
Ooch Hardwoods. They're a dealer out of Wisconsin that does a lot of mail order.
Oh. Brent, I've got a video coming out about some of my stuff, but if you're not already thinking about what you're going to sell for Christmas, that you need to be doing that. But I've got a lot of fall stuff as well, but people kept asking about Christmas, so the video that I'm preparing right now is for Christmas stuff. Did I run that on Crosshatch?
So
I did run that on Crosshatch.
My quick 2 cents for fall type things, September through November, little lanterns. You put like a little tea light LED in them, has a cutout. You can make like the pumpkin style for Halloween as like jack-o'-lantern type stuff, and then that can kind of roll into Thanksgiving and Christmas styles. Just swap out your panels with, there you go. So those kind of decorations go really well, and the LED lighting thing with the tea light candles, they're really cheap to include and add a lot of bit to that. So you'll see a lot of people both in CNC and CNC routers and lasers making those around this time, and depending on your area, you can get very busy doing that.
Yeah, those I did with 4040 CNC. Just playing around. I was in here doing other stuff, and I'm like, while I'm at it, I'm gonna throw a file in the CNC and let it run. No, I don't do a whole lot of phone calls. Most everything I do by email, Messenger, Facebook. I don't do a whole lot of my stuff by phone. I'm usually making too much noise to be talking on the phone. How about you, Steve?
So I've done this in the past. Phone is about my last. If you're calling me, man, it's either an emergency or you don't know me, because that's about the last way I want to be reached most times. But one thing you can do is if you want to have that option and keep it separate, go to Google Voice, sign up for a phone number, and you can actually tie that to an app on your computer or on your phone, or you can get an IP to analog converter that it'll ring. That's a good way to kind of dip your toe into that one and have a separate line without a huge expense. So, and you can still use it on your same phone, but they'll just come through that app instead of your other one. So, but yeah, I don't promote my phone too much, just because it's so much easier to reach me other ways. So
Yes, I concur. Uh, yeah, some of y'all may have saw the video I did where I built this little guy. It's actually not that little. Brandy wanted it kind of big, so it's let's see, it's about 7.5 inches from tip to tip. It's not big enough for Steve to use to go to work on, but somebody told me that Steve may need this file so he could make one to, you
well,
know.
I mean, could I like just make two of them? I could strap them to my boots, and
You probably need to
it'd be
use some
like,
bigger. You probably use some stronger material. This is made out of 4.5 millimeter. But I've got the one that Brandy painted one of them or stained one of them, and it looked really cool. This one hasn't been glued or anything. I had a request for one of these, one of my local customers, as soon as I posted the picture. So I just went ahead and
so
put it out for her.
I need to resurrect it. But back when I got my CO2 laser many moons ago, I had designed a more of like a sleigh that's like a horse-drawn sleigh that could act like a small candy dish. And I think I cut it out of 1/8 inch material. So I might have to
Yeah.
drag that one back out and share that out as a option or inspiration.
Yeah. Now here is straight off of the machine. Like I said, I did run air assist, so let me go hit that. Let me go hit that with some sandpaper and go hit it with the air right quick. I'm gonna mute my mic so y'all ain't gotta listen to it.
Um, Brent, as far as best CNC router to start the average size. So I guess it depends on what you're looking for average size. The 4040 that Clack has back there, that's going to be about the same size as most diodes. So you have about a 16 to 17 inch square working area, but it's very rigid. It can take, you can upgrade the router, and I think it's only about $600 right now. And so for a good starter CNC, it's hard to go wrong with that one. I wouldn't go much smaller than that. Now, if you want something a little bit bigger, the price starts jumping up pretty quick. I'm going to have a video up pretty soon on the bigger brother to that. It's their 6050 Pro VR, and so it's got linear rails, it's got lead screws, it's got closed loop stepper motors that are seriously overkill. But the price goes from like 600 up to about 1600. So there's a pretty big jump in that, and then above there you start getting into the 2500 or so, where you start getting into the 1finity size, and it's a very good machine. But now you've got, you're going to need about a 5 foot by 4 foot table uh, to work with that, and then you're getting into even some bigger projects. But for me right now, and Clack can speak a lot to it, is that 4040 is probably your best bang for the buck for kind of your home decor kind of size projects. And you're still muted.
Hey, my bad. It's the 4040 is a very capable machine, but one thing that you forgot to tell him is save a little bit of money for the software because they love CNC software. Now, I will tell you this: I have learned that if you have Lightburn, easel is probably, if you're not planning on doing anything like with a rotary, because you can't work the rotary with easel. I did find that out. But if you're just doing flat stuff, uh, easel will do 3D files. It does SVGs, and I've got to where I designed in Lightburn. But the only difference is when you're designing in Lightburn, you have to take into account, okay, for this cut, which size bit am I going to use? And you have to space it appropriately, or either you have to make sure when you bring it into easel to tell it to either go outside or inside the tool path or directly on the tool path. It's easiest, in my opinion, if you know you're going to be using an 1/8 inch bit, just to account for that and space it accordingly and tell it to run on the tool path. But sometimes if you forget, you can always, if it's an outside cut, tell it to run outside the tool path. But the software, you're gonna need to set back about $350 for software. The software, not knocking it, but the software that you're gonna get with the machine, it's not gonna do what you're gonna want to do with it. Out
Well,
of the
the
box.
software that comes with the machine is just to run the machine. Um,
Yes.
you need the software to create the files. So, um, yeah, I think Easel, they have their free one that does basic stuff. But
Yeah.
above that, you got to pay like $20 a month, or you got to jump into VCarve, which for the desktop version is
350.
350.
Three is like 365 tax and all. I
Yeah.
just bought it.
So yeah, you're gonna have to spend some money, and this is across the board. There are some, so like what is it? The X-Carve I think comes with Carbide 3D, and so that's a tool you can use with theirs. If you try to use it with others, you got to pay separately, I believe. Um, and there are
Yeah.
a few others. There's definitely Fusion 360 has cam and cam built into it, but you got to either use their basic one and learn how to do it, or also pay for that. So it's definitely not the cheap, $60 cost that Lightburn is, or there's not too many free options out there. There's a few if you dig around, but they're getting to be few and far between.
Yep. All right, back to what we were talking about earlier, guys. Now, I have taken compressed air and blew this out. This is straight off of the machine. Haven't done anything to it. This, fellas, is what Magnolia looks like when you run it with a laser. All right, I don't know if I can get that. That only works with the ZV. But anyway, you see how dark that is? See how black that is? That is Magnolia. Now, if you take and hit that with some acrylic, some polyacrylic, or some polyurethane right now, it will stay that dark. That is why I love my Magnolia. But I've got two more big logs of it. But that's that. Like I said, it's and it's not gonna that's not wiping off because I did it deep enough to where it won't. But yeah, Magnolia. If you can get your hands on it, now it's expensive. It's very expensive. Where I'm at now, maybe Steve might can just like go out by the road and pick up some. I don't know because up there at Black Walnut, like behind him, there just lays everywhere. But where I live, Magnolia is they're very common, but people don't really cut them down unless something bad happens to them. But the wood has this gray and white finish to it, and like I said, all I did was run this through the planer. I didn't even sand this. I hit it with a sander when I brought it out of the laser, just to get any of the overburn off of it. But yeah, and that was let's see what my settings were here. I'll show you on Lightburn. This is what I ran. I ran 110 millimeters a second, 100% power. I did change the LPI to 200, and I am just slightly high on my focus. Now I did run crosshatch, which I did not mean to do, but I was playing with some other stuff earlier. And now I have a piece of poplar in there. Let me get that module out of the way. So I'm fixing to show you guys what poplar looks like. I'm going to have to downsize that just a little bit there. Machine's home. All right, we'll find out what the poplar looks like here shortly.
Oh, see, and here I was messing around with that. I was going to say I'm playing the long game with Magnolia. We planted one about I don't know 10 years ago, and its trunk's maybe about 6 to 8 inches now. So I figure in about another 30 years I'll be good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that you're gonna. I don't know that you're gonna make it by the next live, but
Probably not.
yeah. Oh, there's old Alabama barbecue bullets and big rigs. I think I'm just gonna start calling him North Alabama. Anthony's got a question up there. I don't want to overlook his question. We got to start talking about other stuff. Is it still working? Does it still function, or does it like cut out on you? I've got a P35, but it's still in the box, so I'm assuming it works the same as the P20. And my power button on my P20 stays eliminated; it does not go off. But I mean, it could be that there's just a loose ground on that power plug. Oh, I got to turn some ventilation on. I got smoke coming out my enclosure over here.
Yeah, I'm trying to think on I've got the L2 and the P20, and I don't recall the power light going on and off. But if the rest of the laser's functioning, it could just be the backlight on that button, unless you're noticing any other issues with it. So
Yeah, because I'm assuming that it has to have a separate circuit that controls the light, and it could just be a loose ground on that button.
yeah. Brent's asking where to find the slot resize tool in Lightburn. Do you have Lightburn handy?
Yeah, but I don't ever use it. Hang on, let me swap this over. Uh, well, let me see here. Where's my file design?
All right, we got it.
I got something in here. Do I got anything in here, Scott? No, I don't got. Hang on. File. Let me bring something in that has slots first. There we go. Ew. All right, so let's change this over to a cut. Let's get rid of that little boxes.py thing there. All right, so I do know right here, tools, was it not? Yeah. Resize slots in selection. Now you've got to tell it what you're looking for. And like right here, I built this file in boxes.py by 4.5 millimeter material. So slot depth, slot width, tab height, that's what you've got to go on here. So I'm going to go with slot depth because the way that this piece sits, that's how deep the slot is. So right now this thing's at 4.5. So let's zoom it in there. This one is the same size, so we'll see if this works. All right, so I'm gonna hit OK. Yeah. See, I have not used this, but I do know that's where it's at. And let's see if it did anything to these guys down here.
No, usually it gives you a preview of what
Wait a
it's
minute.
finding.
Wait. I bet I got to ungroup.
You got to ungroup it, yeah.
Yep. Like I said, I don't use this. Okay, so I was looking for 4.5, and she changed them to 3. So let's see what happens. Yeah, see, I'm just not seeing it.
So you can play with the, there's tolerance of how close to that 4.5 it is. But yeah, it needs to be ungrouped. And then you can also select between your options there. It'll give you a preview of what it's going to do each time. So that you can kind of see. But
yeah, see, I don't fool with that because like when I do these, like if I'm doing a file that I can't just go grab a box for, I just create one and then I go over here and lay them out.
yeah.
So
the other thing to be aware of is like if you've got the slot that's a box inside the material, it's going to shrink it from both sides, so it brings it towards the center. And so, for example, on my coaster file, I have that. And if you need to resize that, it'll bring them all in, which actually brings your pieces out of alignment to have that inner 4-inch square. So it's not perfect. And Brent, you're looking for it under the tools menu. So it should be the third from the left, and then there's going to be the resize slots in selection. It's not under the laser tools, but just the regular tools menu.
all right, hang on, let me sand this. I'm gonna sand this poplar right quick.
Yep. And yeah, it's convenient, but it's a little hit or miss whether it's gonna find everything correctly or not. So.
Unmuted it that time.
Sorry, Brian. We'll fix that for you.
All right. This is Poplar, guys. Poplar is probably, if I were going to tell you to go out and try to find some wood that's affordable, easy to find, and burns really good, Poplar would be number one. Because most of the time, Poplar is going to be like this beige or white color. And look how dark that is. And I just blew that out with compressed air, 120 psi. And that's what's left in there. So, but keep in mind, like I said, I'm running my LPI at about 200 on this particular burn. And I'm running a little bit slower than what you would normally run. I'm running about 110 on a 30 watt. And I just hit it with a sander to get the excess off because it does blow a little bit of it out. But that's how dark that is. All right. Now, I've got a piece of cedar here too for show and tell. I'll let burn. Well, it's kind of rough cedar, so y'all, it hadn't been sanded, but we'll do it. Let me move that outside my work area. Get this over here where it won't burn. All right, update that. All right, I'll put this in the corner so I don't waste a whole piece of wood for this little demonstration. All right, same power. Well, hang on. This is cedar. Let me back this up. Let me turn this up to 120. Cedar burns a little better than poplar does. So, you know, it doesn't take as much heat to burn cedar. Oh, there. All right, so best place to buy 400 by 800 millimeter steel honeycomb bed. The only two that I've ever had any dealings with is the Nivel that I have in my enclosure, and what was the other brand? Something cool that Klein bought.
Well, I'm seeing one. I'm just trying to double check to see if it's made from steel or not. Because that's the thing I would caution on any honeycomb. Avoid the ones that are made purely out of aluminum. It looks like this one is iron. It's a Geek Bee. Right now it's $149 with a $10 coupon on Amazon, and it's the 19.68 by 37. So that's roughly $950 by 500.
Yep.
So if you're in the U.S. and you got Amazon Prime, that's probably the best price I've seen for one right now. I'll go ahead and drop that down in the chat there for you to look at. Otherwise, yeah, both Clack and I have videos on the Nivel version of that. That one I think is about $199. Occasionally they've got deals on it for less. Right now it's $179 because they got a $20 coupon on it. But that one is a good bed. It's steel, so the magnets work on it. It's a little more durable.
Yeah, I like the magnets, not because I use them to hold down material, but because I use them to hold my honeycomb down. Uh-oh, sound like that finished. It did finish.
Well, they're just more durable. If you're using any of the push-in pins on the aluminum ones, they're so much easier to bend and flex. So.
All right, up next, cedar. And you can see the burn is pretty much identical as far as the longer is not quiet. It's a good machine. It is not quiet. So we'll get them all laid up here for you guys. There you go, right there. Y'all asked about it. There you have it. Cedar, magnolia, and poplar. And as you can see, the only problem with cedar is because it is red, you don't get quite as much pop. With, oof, I'm having a hard time orienting this right. Good gosh. There we go. So with the cedar, you don't get quite the pop that you do with the other two because it is a darker wood. But it does burn really nice. If you can get your hands on it, it burns really nice. It cuts really good, and it smells awesome. So there you go. There you go, right there. I'll take a picture of that. I might make a post about that after a while, guys. Let me turn this machine off. It is not quiet. You'll not forget to leave the longer on overnight. Is it possible to melt aluminum? I don't know about melting an aluminum honeycomb. I do know those aluminum undersheets. I have warped quite a few of those. If you get them too close to the laser, because I've tried testing engraving metal on them before and warped a few of them.
All right, so Jack's wondering about what's a good indicator. Stepping up to a CO2 from a diode for production work. That's a good question, and it's going to kind of depend on what you're doing, what type of space you have, and such. But sometimes it also is going to depend on the projects. Now, the CO2s obviously give you better capability for cutting acrylics, including clear. But another thing that I see a lot with the diodes that people complain about, and I touched on it a little bit earlier, is when you have an object that, like if you're trying to engrave the bottom of a tray and you've got maybe a 3/4 inch lip, you're kind of stuck with being inside that tray size, which is going to then shrink down your engraving size because your head's got to move around. Well, with the CO2, you can put a longer focal length, and then your head's going to stay above the whole thing. So you're going to have a better working area for that. Um, Outside of that, it definitely comes into you can generally get faster cutting capabilities from a CO2, but you're going to have to kind of adjust your files. Your kerf is going to be a bit bigger. It's going to be a bit different. So you're going to gain speed, but you're going to lose some resolution. So if you're doing a lot of engraving and it's just things like this, solid text and whatnot, it's still going to do that fine. But if you're getting into really fine photographic stuff, you're still going to want to keep that diode around, even if you jump to CO2. Um, I would say if you're working with like sheet goods, so you're using a lot of consistent material, plywoods and such that you could slide a bigger sheet into, and you're making just a bunch of the same things, that's where CO2 is going to benefit you a lot. But if you're continually to do a lot of one-off, a lot of customized things where you do one or maybe you set a few up, but you're prepping them, I don't know that you're going to see the benefit of a CO2 over a diode or multiple diodes. You also have to remember that the CO2, while it can do a lot of things in one job, if you for the same amount of money, you could have three different diodes doing three different kinds of jobs, and if one finishes, you can have it run on as well. So um, I would look at it as if I'm producing a lot of the same thing. Like I used to cut out a lot of glue caddy kits for my RC people and a lot of servo trays where I would put a big sheet in my CO2 machine. I would let it run, and when it's done, I had 25 of them ready to go. That was great. Um, Outside of that, I think having multiple machines, even if they were smaller diodes, um, probably for the amount of the cost and then the hassle, maintenance and whatnot, you might be better off sticking with multiple higher powered diodes at that point.
Well, I know I'm biased on that because I don't have a big CO2 sitting around, but I do have a friend of mine who runs a company who has a big CO2, and he uses it for batching out like you said multiples on a project. But because he has that big CO2 that has to be running on those high dollar projects like that, he usually sends me the one offs and the little small things that he doesn't have time to shut his machine down for. So that's one thing you have to consider is the cost of that machine is going to force you to have to run it to be able to recoup your money. It's kind of like, if you're a truck driver and you go buy the latest and greatest big new truck, you better not let the wheels quit spinning because you're going to start losing money. Whereas if you've got, maybe it's not the best truck, but it's paid for, then you can kind of work at your own pace. And that's the way I look at it. I don't want to have myself so buried in overhead that I got to be out here because I enjoy this. This is my hobby. Yes, I make money at it, but I don't want to be buried in debt so that every day it's like, okay, I don't want to do anything today, but I got to. Now, I will say this with with my setup because like the other day I had two lasers running and had two CNCs running at the same time, and I'm over here cutting wood up for stove covers while they're working. You start figuring how much money per hour that's being made in this shop with just a one man operation. That's pretty good for not having a bunch of overhead. So those are all things that you got to figure out exactly what do you intend to do with the machine. If you're planning on doing custom like plaques for people, you're going to be doing 12 by 12 plaques, and you buy a machine that has a 50-inch work bed. You know, yeah, you'll probably get done with it quick, but that's a lot of real estate taken up by one tool if you don't have to have it. That's just my 2 cents. It's very specific of what your situation is and what you plan to do with the machine. Uh, Scooby, I have been working on a way to outfit my jig kit to work with other machines, working out a few bugs, but I have a viable plan, and hopefully within the next 2 weeks, I'll be doing a video about it and showing everybody how it works and where to get it. I'm actually going to have a couple of different options for attachment and the way to use it, but it'll basically allow you to use it with pretty much any machine on the market. But I'll be releasing that in the next couple of weeks. But it'll be my same kit that I'm using now, just re-engineered for a different approach. Let's see. Oh, I stopped on comments, and man, I have got backed up. Steve said he took 2 honeycombs and made one. You can do that. I mean, you can actually take little pieces of metal and put between 2 of them and use 2 of them, but you're going to have that one little section right in the middle where you don't technically have honeycomb unless you do take the end caps off of them and put them together that way.
Yeah, I mean, just going back and looking at some of my numbers on my 60 watt CO2 cutting 3mm or 1/8 inch Baltic birch plywood, I was pushing that around 18 to 21 millimeters a second. Whereas, your typical 20 watt diode is probably, under 10 for sure, probably 6 to 8. So you're going to get, you do definitely see a speed increase, but that's only useful if you can, run a lot of things at once. So.
Yes. Yeah, my average with the 20 watts so far is 6 to 10. Some of them will actually pull 10 millimeters a second out, but I don't know that I would do that like on jobs. On jobs, I usually like to drop it down a millimeter a second or 2 lower just to make sure I get a clean drop and don't have to go around it with an X-Acto knife or anything, because that's a pain. That really slows up your workflow when you're over there trying to play operation.
So yeah, I mean, if you're working with smaller items, and you don't need the bigger work area, you get two diodes, and you're not worrying about a chiller. You're not worrying about mirror alignment, but you do lose a few functionality there of the acrylics being a big one, as well as that ability to change the depth of your focal point for cutting and engraving some kind of unique items. So.
Yeah, Daniel, I think I saw pictures of that in the laser engraver group where you were putting that together. That's a lot of lasers in one machine, in one box. Ash. I don't even know we have ash around here. If we do, it's not really readily available. How about you, Steve?
They are cutting it down and burning it up around here because we got the emerald ash borer that's come in the past few years. So I haven't. I mean, it's when I've had ash, I usually use that for things that are really sturdy. It makes great table legs. It makes good tool handles. Makes good workbench legs and such. So yeah, I tend to go with something that's a little more, maple and whatnot around here is a little easier to find. So if I'm cutting down my own out of some of this stuff, I usually save the ash for things that need to be bigger and sturdier.
Yeah. Jeff, you must give away all your stuff, or just doing it because you love it. And if that's the case, that's cool. When I first bought my laser, it was just for me. I wasn't planning on making money with it. And then people started hitting me up, and it took me, I think, for my X-Tool D1, I think it took me 2 months to make my money back off of my 10 watt. And so then I took the money that I'd made and put a little bit with it and went and bought me a 20 watt when I realized that the 10 watt was not doing it by itself. And that's when I started running 2 machines at that time. I used my 10 for engraving and my 20 for heavy cutting. And it's just spiraled out of control to this point. Sharon, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that's the beautiful thing about these diodes in the past few years is they've made having a laser as kind of just a hobbyist thing far more approachable. It's not as big as your CO2. They're less expensive as most CO2s. You can get them out of the way. That's what I've been kind of loving about it. Is it's made this this tool and this woodworking or crafting or making medium approachable for far more people. But it's also flooded the market for the people who have been offering laser engraved services. So,
Oh yeah, Sharon. I'm going to be honest with you. For what I do, and that it's different. Like I said, it depends on what you're doing. For what I do, I like the honeycomb because I don't have to go fishing stuff out of the bottom of the machine. With the blades, some of the real small stuff that I do, because you got to think most of the wood that I'm cutting is 4.5 millimeters thick, and a small piece turns sideways, drops between those blades, and now I got to go fishing for it. I have a hard enough time sometimes with little bitty pieces falling in the honeycomb, like on some really small detailed stuff, and I have to take the honeycomb out of the machine or either cut another one. So I I like honeycombs. Now, you wouldn't have as many areas of impact with a blade type system, but that's really not a concern to me. I cut this on a honeycomb. There's no there's no burns on the back of it, and I haven't sanded or touched this. So as long as you keep your honeycomb clean, I don't really have a problem. Oh, I'm about to choke to death on a Tums, guys.
Yeah, I mean, if you really want to go to the extreme, there's some people that make like pin beds, so you have just a very fine point that you have almost zero chance of flashback. But like you said, if you're doing any fine cutouts and those pieces can fall, one of the worst things they can do is fall part way and stick up, especially with these diodes. Um, but yeah, it's really it's about supporting it level, but also allowing as much airflow underneath as possible. So, I know some people were asking, what's a cheaper way to do it? If you can find a really flat, baking rack that's nice and even, that's a great way to start out. You can even I've done it where I elevate it just one piece of wood on each side, and there's an air gap under here, and I just do the working area in the middle. So it's just about having that airflow underneath and a way for both the smoke and debris and vapors to escape, while also allowing your material to stay supported. So,
Yeah.
uh, whatever works for you is really what works. The honeycombs are just the most popular one because they give you mounting options. They're fairly stable, and there's a very fine, thin piece of metal there to provide some flashback. So,
Yeah. Well, Norbert, I will say this. I wish Klein was in here. He could speak to it. But Klein has just recently got started doing his stuff, and I have had him so busy that like he's on divert now for jobs. But you just got to get your name out there. I met some really cool people. We had a little vendor day at Tractor Supply Saturday. I didn't participate, but I did go out there to see who all was there and meet some new people. And I met two people who had diode lasers, which one of them was using a 5 watt, and the other one was using like a 10 watt older atom stack. And we were, just talking shop. But the thing that I was surprised by with the two of them is neither one of them really used Facebook like Marketplace or anything to try to sell stuff. And so I was encouraging them to try to get on Marketplace because that's where I got started with mine. And you would not believe the amount of work that you can get once your name gets out there in the community. And that's just local. I turn down anything that I have to ship. So now, if you want to get another machine, get another 20. In my opinion, if you can budget it.
yeah, I mean, definitely the 20 is going to give you a better cutting ability and still be able to engrave pretty well. So, unless every once in a while, especially now you're going to have the holidays coming up again. You find some of those Black Friday specials, Prime Day deals, whatever they throw out. Sometimes they're just trying to close out a model, and you can pick it up. I remember last year they were selling off the 5 watts for practically 300, almost less if you had a coupon. So if you can find one of those, that's great. But yeah, I would say I wouldn't worry about the spot size. between 10 and 20 on the X tools.
That's a 30, guys. That's a 30-watt longer B1. And I had a 10 watt. I ran a 10 watt for a long time. It's not that noticeable of a difference. You could lay two to burn side by side, and most people couldn't even, eyes wouldn't be good enough to even pick out the difference, in my opinion. Unless you're working with glass or some other medium. But with wood, it's hard to tell the difference. Adam Stack P7 M30. Is that the? I had a P9 M40. I haven't. I don't guess I've had a P7 M30. Have you, Steve? Is that the tripod still?
Uh,
I have to search that.
I have a small. Is that the 5 watt? Because I have a 5 watt P7. The little yeah, kind of cantilevered thing. I keep it
Yeah.
around, and I've taken it out to like I've hooked it up to a little battery unit, actually, this thing, and
Yeah.
run it portably, just like engraving
Come here.
some outdoor things.
Come on. Come here. Hold on. Well, she decided she didn't want to come. I thought Callie was going to come sit with me for a minute. Yeah, I think the Adam Stack P9 M40 that I had, I just donated it to our trade school the other day. So I don't have it here anymore. Mine was a 5 watt also. All
Yeah, I'm
right,
actually
guys.
talking with our graphic communication faculty at the community college I work at, and they're looking at adding. I've talked with them before about some of the stuff I do, and they follow me on Instagram and such, so they're always seeing that, and so they're interested in seeing what their students could do with a laser. So they do a lot of, they work in graphics design and such in a lot of the Adobe products, and then they'll put it into print, or they'll do screen printing, other things like that. But this would be an additional medium for them to work with. So,
Oh,
I
yeah.
told them, I said I'd have them come over and take a look at what they could do, and then they'd have to talk to facilities about making sure they can set up spot. But if it works out, I'm definitely going to hook them up with a laser or two to get started with.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. Be nice to see what they come up with. They'll start like everything will have the campus logo on it.
Yeah.
That they can. You give them the fiber, and they can really start hooking some stuff up.
Well, I'd have to have my replacement for that one first. So
Yeah, I know the feeling. You don't know what you got until you get it, and then you don't want to let it go. Because I have,
right.
like, all my rotaries now have the steps per rotations per millimeters per rotation or whatever is burned to the top of them, just so I don't forget to check that every time. Because I get so aggravated trying to go back and confirm.
Mm-hmm.
But if you hadn't already, guys, the Laser Engraver community page is a Facebook page that Steve and I kind of spun off of the lives because people were wanting to show us pictures of things that they made, ask questions, exchange ideas, just get a little cheat on a jump off for material settings and that type of thing. And this enables you guys to not only interact with Steve and I, but to interact with each other. And we've got a lot of really talented guys that know a lot about lasers and CNCs. Some know more than I do. So, matter of fact, a lot of them probably know more than I do. But so it's a good resource. It's a good page to follow. Like I said, if you're new to laser engraving, these guys are really helpful at answering questions and giving advice. And like I said, me and Steve try to swing through there occasionally and see if we can lend any of our I wouldn't call it expertise, but we'll call it experience
There you go.
to the group. So if you have a Facebook page, or if you want to have a Facebook page, go check that group out. It's just the links right there below where it's at. So don't fret if you can't write it down or copy it or whatever. But just search for laser engraving community, and it'll pop up. There
Yeah,
are
and
some questions.
if you're watching from my stream, I have it actually linked down in the description already. You can just click on there, and that should take you right to it. So
I should start doing that.
I know they should just all come over to mine and they can watch it there.
And if
That'd
you
be fine. That'd be
have,
fine.
yeah, and if you haven't already, guys, if you're coming from my side of the house, and you hadn't already, go hit that button on Steve's side and help support Steve. We support each other through, some of our affiliations with some of these companies, as well as, Steve is my helpline if I've got a machine, because it's usually the way it works is we both get the same machine. But if Steve gets his put together before I do, I'm like, hey, anything I need to be watching for? Is there any problems that you noticed? Or if I have a problem with a machine, and Steve doesn't, then that helps us to determine, okay, did I get a bad board, or did I get a bad part, or is this machine just garbage? If both of us have the same problem, that's when we're like, okay, maybe we need to back away from this one a little bit. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we always appreciate that. So definitely, if you're coming from my channel and this is the first time you're seeing Clack, go check them out and hit that subscribe button over there for sure. Uh, as far as running off of a portable power station, I actually am planning on taking mine out and testing this. Weather and time just hasn't been on my side right now. So what you want to look at is these portable power stations have kind of a watt hour rating. Some of the ones like that one I just showed you is about, I think, 350 to 400 watts. You get some of the 800,000 on up. So you want to compare that to your power draw. Generally, that's going to be the power brick going into the laser itself. A lot of those are, maybe this is kind of going back to the argument of how they used to advertise diode lasers as this is an 80 watt laser. Well, that was the input wattage to the laser and not the output wattage. Well, that's important to know is the overall power draw from that. So if you have power brick on your laser is 120 watt power supply, you know that at full power, that's what it is going to draw out of your power source. So if you've got a 300 watt hour power supply or a battery bank and it's pulling 120, you're going to get maybe 2 to 2.5 hours of runtime out of that. Now, if you add on top of that any sort of fan, like an air extractor, maybe you're running your laptop off that, you're going to need to add all those up to see what your actual runtime is going to be. So, but most of these lasers, and this also flips over to the question of, hey, is my power bill going to go up really high by running a laser? Well, most of these things are like running a 75 watt light bulb. So if you've got an outdoor floodlight on your property or such, that's probably in that 60 to 100 watt range. And however much power that draws, that's what your laser is drawing at the time. So no, it's usually more of the, like in the CO2s, the chillers, those run higher power than the overall full machine. And then of course, heating the shop when I'm dumping air outside is going to be the bigger cost than the actual machine running. But no, they don't take up a whole lot of time. So, or a whole lot of power. So just depending on how long you need to run it outside, that's how you're going to scale your power bank for. But I do have a larger one than this. It's about, I think 1,500 watt hours with about maybe 12 to 13 usable. So I definitely want to go out and do some tests with that to help people out. So hopefully here early fall, maybe in the next month or so, I'll definitely be able to get that out and report that. So yeah, 500 watt, like I say, I think you're going to get maybe 2 to 3 hours, depending on, again, if you plug your laptop into it as well and anything else you're running with it, that's all going to add up. But just the laser itself, it should run it for 2 to 3 hours.
Oh man, somebody messing with me about my lights. Norbert, hey, y'all talking about my lights. I'm gonna show y'all. This is just a little sneak peek at what is in the editing phase currently. All right. I have a video that I'm making, and we went all out on this one, guys, trying to get you guys into the festive spirit. So let me show you this, if I can get it to show. There you are, right there. Check out the fireplace. And it actually made me get hot, guys. I told Brandy, I was like, I don't know if it's in my mind or what, but I'm burning up in here today. I was like, is the air conditioner quit? But that's what you guys got to look forward to as soon as I get through editing it. Everybody said they wanted to see Brandy back in the shop more, so there you go. But now my power bill's not that bad. I run a lot of lasers, CNCs. The dust extraction pulls more juice than all of these lasers put together. Because you got a, what is it, 660 CFM, 4-inch inlet dust extraction running on a CNC. I promise you it's gobbling up more electricity than the rest of these lasers are.
Yeah, so those fans can have a heavier draw, but yeah, even in the busiest times out here, the only time that I notice a power bill spike is in the winter when I'm trying to keep it warmer out here and running those electric heaters. 1,500 watts, that's going to suck the power pretty quick. So,
Well, if I have to do a lot of planing, I will notice a spike in mine because I'm going to tell you that planer will eat through some juice. Uh, so it'll go. Yeah, I think that's right. Let me look, make sure. I may be wrong. Let me see what it says. 660, 5.7 amp, 660 CFM. Yes, that would be correct. 12-gallon capacity when dust collection. That's what I'm running on my router over here on my CNC. And it does a really good job. It's actually more suction than I need because it's like a shop vac, basically. It is more suction than I need for that one little CNC over there. You see that? I've got it choked down from a 4-inch down to like a 2.5, and then it goes down all the way to like a 1.5, going into the DeWalt. So it's like it will clean the entire workspace when it fires up, and I've got it all relayed together so that when I hit carve, the DeWalt comes on, the chip extraction comes on, and it puts it in that nice little bag, and it doesn't blow my nice cool air outside. So.
oof. So my dust collector is 1100 CFM.
Well, I got two of them. I got one over yonder from the other stuff, and then of course my planer. It's got like a 20 horsepower blower motor built in my planer.
Yeah.
But I just use it to get the bulk of the sawdust and the chips and throw it outside. That's all I get. Now, when I build my new clack shack, it'll probably be a 2-phase unit. Just throwing that out there. It'll probably run off 240. Because I plan on plumbing the whole place with like 4-inch PVC and having caps every 6 foot. Because you cannot have enough places to have chip extraction. I have learned that.
Yep.
Is there a cat running around behind me? It's their bedtime. About 9 o'clock, they start coming in here going, "Hey, turn the lights out. It's time for us to go to bed." They sleep up there behind that black curtain that I put up there because it's just storage. But they actually climb that ladder behind me and go up there. They've got a little cat bed I built that they sleep in up there. Mm-hmm. Two 12-volt batteries with a 20-watt inverter. You're going to need somebody that knows how to figure out load and watt drain.
Yeah, you need to know the amp hour rating of the batteries as well. So.
Yeah, probably not too terribly long without any way of charging them. Yeah, Mark, that's the other thing that I will do. I will have air outlets periodically, which I do have that in this shop. I will say that. I've got every enclosure I've got is hooked to air, and I've got another air port over there on my little test table. And I've got one out back where I park the tractor and the lawnmowers. So I did do that, but I did not build fume extraction and chip extraction into this shop, and it's just not going to get it at this point. She showed up. I was wondering if she was hiding. Yeah, the fireplace made it hot in here, guys. There was crackling from the wood burning, and it just had that whole mental effect on me. It made me hot. All right, questions, concerns, comments, whatever. It's a minute, an hour and 54 minutes, which means we've almost overstayed our welcome, guys. And we don't want to overstay our welcome. And Steve is concentrating heavy on something over there.
Math, it's hard.
Oh, you trying to figure that? Yeah, no. See, you see, I ain't even pick up a calculator. It's way too much figuring. That's why I got a nephew that's actually an engineer, and I just call him up and go, hey, what do I need for this? And Daniel, don't make him go back to work. Oh, is you at work, Daniel? We won't tell nobody. Your secret is safe with us. Daniel looks familiar in that picture, but I can't. That's a little bitty picture. And it won't let me click to see his profile here. All right, Steve, you've got really quiet over there. Steve is vapor locked from all the math he's trying to do because right now, guys, he is trying to calculate the estimated workload, assuming that the machine is running at 100% capacity of a diode laser. And he is also at the same time trying to calculate what the two 12-volt batteries amp retention would be. The only problem that he's going to have figured out is it depends on whether it's a lead acid or whether it's a lithium battery, or because those things discharge at faster rates, guys. So this is really, with limited information, this is going to be really hard for him to calculate. But if anybody can do it, Steve is your man. He can figure it out. So what have you come up with, Steve?
Oh, so helpful to have someone blabbering in your ear while you're doing that.
Well, I can't let it be awkwardly quiet, Steve. I mean, it's just. Hang on, Where's my fireplace music at, or my fireplace at? I'll just put the fireplace on for him. See, that's what I was talking about, Brian. If it's lead acid, it's not gonna. You've only got like half your capacity. So I mean, if it's lithium ion, then there's that. I mean, there's a lot of variables in that scenario.
Yes,
Hey,
there is.
hey, do like I did. Just go buy yourself a Win 2,000-watt inverted generator with eco mode, and the thing idles, and you can set it between you, use it as a coffee table, and have a conversation. You can't hear it running as long as you're outside. And if you're inside, then I know what Steve's answer to that question is.
What question's that?
This one.
What's my answer to that question?
It depends.
It does.
I told you I knew what your answer would be.
So a lot of times, I mean, so honestly, anytime I can use wood glue, it's going to be preferable. It gives you more working time. It actually creates a better bond than CA. But what I'll do a lot of times is if I can't sit and wait for the wood glue to bond, I will actually use the CA in a few spots to act like clamps and put wood glue on the rest of it. So you'll just hit those with a little kicker, a little wood glue to do the real bond, hold them in place, and that's great. But for a lot of the time, if they're just smaller projects and there's not a lot of stresses on it, I want to move on, a little bit of CA glue, a little bit of kicker, and move on to it. But if I'm going for something real structural and really need it bond, I'll always take the time and use wood glue.
See, I know how your mind works, Steve. I knew that was going to be it depends, because it depends on the material in the scenario. Oh, Mark said you forgot another variable. What color is the battery?
Yeah.
Makes it, well, the color of the battery may actually affect it, because if it's sitting out in the sunlight, if it's a dark colored battery, it's going to get hotter quicker than it would be if it was a white battery. And the heat in that battery is going to also affect the chemical process inside that's going to cause it to discharge at a slower or faster rate. It's also going to depend on the temperature of the climate where he's at. She got way too many variables. Yeah. What Mark said.
Yeah. Yeah.
Daniel said he mixes his CA and his wood glue to create super wood glue.
Deep cycle gel cell for solar off grid. Okay.
Oh, 100. Well, the good news is if it's a gel battery, that means it's not as susceptible to the cold weather.
Uh, it's going to depend on your inverter a little bit, but I'm going to say if you've got 200 amp hours of gel cell batteries and you're just running the laser off that, you're going to be, you could probably get a good 10 hours of runtime, I would say conservatively on that.
Whoa.
Nice timing. Very nice.
I'm sorry. I couldn't have it. Oh. Ooh. Oh. I've been saving that one. I knew there was going to be a time tonight when I could use it. But hey, I am proud of you though, bro. Because I mean, it's math.
Hey, we make it a goal to answer the questions and be helpful. So
I appreciate you barbecue there. He said that was awesome. He liked the timing too. You got to admit, I had that little bit of pause for suspense, and then bam, gotcha. But yeah, Robert, have a good one, man. We try to be funny, but yeah, there's a lot to it, and to be honest, no amount of calculation in the world, I don't think is going to get you an exact amount. But if Steve says 10 hours, it's probably going to be pretty close to 10 hours. Because if I was going to ask anybody that question, other than my engineer nephew, probably, because he's an electronics engineer, he could probably tell me that off the top of his head. But it would be Steve.
well,
Or I could ask Brandy, and she'd just be like, I don't know. All right, questions, comments, concerns, jokes about Steve. Yeah, I'd love to convert to all solar, but I don't think that's happening here. I don't own enough land to have enough solar panels to power the shop.
well, they're making a lot of advancements in those cells and in the battery technology, so it's getting more feasible. But yeah, it's still, like my shop here, the roof lines are they don't face to the south. They're more like I've got a east facing one and a west facing one, so I've got just the worst possible alignment for roof to have solar on my shop here.
Yeah. Yes, Lisa, there is actually both mine and Steve's channels. Both we have the video. Once the live ends, it just kind of goes into our playlist. I've got mine saved as a podcast, so if you don't mind missing looking at us, you can actually go while you're driving or on a long trip. Need something to keep you occupied, maybe a little humor. You can play that as a podcast also. So, but yeah, me and Steve both, you should be able to find us on either Facebook or YouTube. The only difference with the replay is that if you comment, we're not necessarily gonna see it live. Some folks get confused on that sometimes. But to see the live chat, you also have to be able to click on the live chat to view it. It's separate than the comments on the video. So, but yes, you can watch later when you get better service. And we would appreciate that. It helps us. Like I said, it helps kind of keep us going. Tropical storm. You must be in California. Y'all are not used to those over there, but here in Alabama, we got plenty of experience. Trust me, they're not that bad. If y'all can handle earthquakes, you can handle it. You'll be good. But yeah, I heard California's getting hit by a hurricane, and it doesn't happen very often over there, from what I've heard.
Well, it died down to a tropical storm, but they're getting a lot of rain yet. And, my dad in Central Arizona, they said they're even expecting to see an influx of rain from it, which they probably can. So
I was gonna say Arizona probably won't complain about the rain though.
no, they probably won't.
Yeah, yeah. See, I couldn't handle the earthquakes. We actually do. This is a little known fact. We actually do have a fault line in North Alabama, right up near Tennessee, and since I have lived where I'm living now, there's been two earthquakes. I slept through both of them. Now I did catch on one our front porch video camera did this, like literally you can see the image just kind of flutter just a little bit. So I'm pretty sure it hit our house. But I live on a sand, like where I live is real sandy, so I'm not sitting on bedrock. So you know, earthquakes kind of get lost in the sand here. We don't feel them like they do when they live on like granite mountains and stuff like that. IG, what is IG?
Instagram.
Oh, Instagram. Can you stream on Instagram?
You can go live. Yep. But it's a little bit different.
Well,
So, Norbert, I did send a site a bit of a legal type email saying, hey, you need to stop this. That site's based in Colombia. There's really not a whole lot I can do. I've gotten them removed from other sites. I've gotten them removed from some Facebook groups. But yeah, when they're hosting this site out of country, there's not a whole lot you can do about that, other than try to put some pressure on them. But I do appreciate people that have, alerted me to when they see them. It's never fun to see your stuff stolen like that and people trying to profit off it. But it's also, unfortunately, in this arena, you do kind of have to eventually expect it that someone's going to take your idea and, hopefully they put their spin on it, but they may just try to outright steal it and try to make money off it. And you can fight it to a point where you can say, hey, it's been a good run, I'll move on to the next thing and do the next creative thing as well. So,
yeah.
it is what it is in this world. And, there's only so much you can do to combat it.
Yeah, well, I'm going to be honest with you. They could have at least taken the effort to take new pictures because
That would take effort.
because because they even used your photos. That's what killed me because I'm like, that's the same pictures. I mean, they didn't do anything. I guess they just downloaded the file and downloaded your photos and just republished it.
Yeah.
But
So what I should do, and if I make another manual like this for another item, I probably will, is in each illustration and each photo, you got to have a watermark that is very awkward to crop out. You can't have it out in the edges where they could just kind of trim it down a little bit. You do that, and at least then people will see your logo in there and go, well, wait a minute, that's not yours. But that's the price of education right there.
yeah, well, I have had that happen with some of my videos because usually I'll put the logo like in the corner of my videos, but then I see my video, but it's just like framed down just a little bit, but it's still
Yep.
me. So yeah, if they want it, they're gonna get it. Hopefully they'll get that took down. But I'm gonna be honest with you, I didn't even know that was a real site. So as far as the U.S. market and the circles that we run in, I don't know that that's gonna have a whole lot of effect on you. So
No, you know, yeah, like I said, it is what it is, and well, I'll try to do better with it. But I do appreciate everybody who has bought files from me, whether it's the enclosure plans or some of the other stuff. A lot of times I try to give things out that are cheap and easy, but if it took me a little more time to develop, I might stick it out there to try to just recoup some of my time and investment on it. And so I appreciate when people do support me by doing that. And same with Clack. I know he's got a lot of jig files, a lot of ornaments, other decor stuff out there. So um,
yeah,
and I think it does help. We're us being involved and putting things out there. It's pretty easy to find where these things came from, and hopefully people will support them. And for that, I mean, I don't think we're asking an extreme amount for any of our stuff anyway. So
yeah.
I
Well,
think I
and
think
like I
that goes a
said,
long way too.
yeah, like I said, I think the most expensive thing in my Etsy shop's like $5. But the average person, if it took you 30 minutes to design the file at your hourly rate for your job, chances are you're getting a bargain paying $4 or
Yeah,
$5 for that file. So
yeah,
that's I don't try to get I don't try to like make a killing off of people. But it is nice. It does help, because like a lot of these videos, you know how it is. You got to make a video, so you got to run down to Michael's and buy some coasters, or buy a couple of pieces of wood, or if somebody wants to know how to engrave this, and which I've got a sawmill, so most of that big wood I get from there. But there's things that they're like, hey, have you ever tried one of these? And it's like, oh no, I haven't. So go on Amazon, order it. So that's what helps support a lot of what I do with the shop. I mean, I've got blanks over here that I'll buy them, burn them up, and just set them on a shelf. So it does help recoup that. And like I said, this is going to be my little retirement gig. And I do enjoy. I love it when I go into some of these other laser groups and you see the pictures of what people have done, and right in the background you see those teeth. You see
Yeah.
those teeth across the back. I mean, I like that. I like the fact that people enjoy using my files, and it's helping them make a little bit of money. So
Yeah.
it's
I,
worth it, I think.
I see your jig files out there a lot of times, and it's fun seeing in groups where people are posting photos that they've built the enclosure off of my design as well, and or I the it came out of necessity. Just I wanted to have that coaster holder for some of the slate tiles and such, and so I threw the video out there and threw the files up there for people, and yeah, for I think I got them out there for 250 or something like that, and um,
That's not much
I
by the time Essie gets through with you.
well, no, it's not a whole lot, but I mean, it's the same thing. I mean, I've gone looking for certain type of artwork or other things, and if someone's got it out there for a few bucks, yeah, I'm going to throw my money at them and save myself the design time on it. So um, I do try to make sure I'm vetting it to make sure that it's their work, and I try to support various people that I want to see succeed in various ways. So whether it's subscribing to them on YouTube or being a member, or some, people that do spin up Patreon, things like that. I try to, uh, support others and share, share the wealth with them as well to make it worthwhile. Just kind of that reinforcement that what they're doing is appreciated. So
Oh yeah. But no, like I said, I appreciate everybody that does use my Etsy shop, and I've seen a lot of guys, tell people, "Hey, go check this out. It's a good tool or whatever," and it's, that's nice, and it does help support the tool addiction. So, have a good night there, Scooby. Yeah, I'm about ready to go to bed myself. I have run out of tea. I brought a smaller cup. I forgot to get my big cup, and so I'm about to thirst to death over here. I need some water, but
yeah,
but yeah, guys, thanks for all the support. Like I said, I'm coming up on. Let's see if I don't think I've made it there yet. I'm coming up on another milestone. 15,000. Hopefully, it looks like within the next couple of days. And it is hard to believe that, like, what, a year and a half ago, year ago, uh, you know, I was excited to have like 800. So that says a lot, and we appreciate it. And like I said, Steve and I try to provide y'all some good content. But if you haven't, go join the community page. And if you haven't already, also check out Steve's YouTube channel as well as his Facebook. Because I don't think either one of us have much of a presence at all on Facebook, do we? It's kind of sad.
I yeah, I mean, I try to post there. I try to put kind of more kind of in progress behind the scene things between Instagram and Facebook. Try to spread some things out there. But yeah, definitely. I mean, my primary focus has been YouTube for sharing videos and information. But
Yeah.
definitely appreciate all the support, all the comments. Definitely comments are huge, whether it's on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube. It's just nice to, for one thing, know that people are watching it and saying something, but that does help things out as far as them getting noticed by other people and them feeding it out to others. So we definitely appreciate the interaction there and such. So, but yeah, we'll. I've got a busy week, busy hot week here, but I hope to get some things out, and we'll have some videos out, and hopefully not hot weather beyond Thursday, so I can be back out here next Sunday.
Yeah, well, keep in mind, guys, it'll be here before you know it. I've got this video coming, and it's gonna be a good one, Brandy. I hope you're still watching. It's going to be a good one. I've got some creative editing. I have been censored just a little bit. Brandy has told me that my editing better not, better not be bad on her behalf. So we'll see how that goes. We'll see. I think it'll be fine, guys. But y'all have a good night. And until next time, y'all know what a drill. Be safe and have a good day. Oh,
We'll see
need
ya.
to show. Hey, Steve, just go check
Oh,
out.
what?
Not you, not that, Steve.
Oh.
Steve, just go to my channel and hang on. Let me show you. I'll show you an early one. I'll drop this little tidbit before we go, so it will be in the comments there. Let me find one. Let me find one. Let me find one. Oh, okay. Here we go. Here we go. This is one of my earliest videos, and guys, be nice, okay? I knew nothing about cameras. I knew nothing about microphones. I knew nothing about editing, and it makes me cringe to go back and watch some of these videos now. But that's where I started at. Everybody's got to start somewhere, right? So, but yeah. So anyway, y'all have a good one, and see you next time, Steve.
We'll see y'all.